So in the previous classes, we have discussed the message authentication and message integrity. So that can be achieved by using the concept of message digest, and we have used something called as MAC, that is a message authentication code. So the information will be converted in terms of message digest. So if I want to just check it out quickly, so we can check this. What is the um, Mac and what it will do. So this is what we have discussed in the previous class. So the original message, okay, at the sender side will be converted into something called as message digest, and for that message digest, I mean this message digest will be converted. I mean it will be converted into from the original message, it will be converted to message digest by using something called as the hash function. Okay, so hashing algorithm or hash function will be used, and message digest will be created. And with that, for that message digest, we'll be using this MAC, that is message authentication code, and we can prove this. I mean we can achieve the message authentication, and this converted message will be sent at the destination, and again at the destination site, they will use this public key, and you can see this. So the encryption will done, and the same will be done at the sender site. And again with the MAC function, the message will be created, and it will check whether this original message, I mean the message that is being received at the this side, at the destination side, it will compare it, and if it is matched, if it is same, then it will be accepted, otherwise it will be discarded. But this has got a drawback. So in case of this message digest and message authentication, it uses a symmetric key. That means both sender and receiver should have the same shared key, or the same public key, we can say. So if you observe this, the color of this key and this key is same, so they should use the same key. But it is very difficult if you are using long messages. Okay, if the message that we are sending or receiving, if they are too long, then this technique will not work out. So to overcome to solve that, I mean, so to overcome the drawback of this, we need to understand something called as the digital signature. So we all basically know that a signature is nothing but which verifies the authentication of any document or any information. Okay, so we all are familiar with the concept of signature. So it shows the from where the message originated, or from whom the document is been signed, and this message belongs to whom, and this is what we are all familiar with the signature. So it is basically, a signature is a proof to the recipient that the document comes from the correct entity. So for example, if you take when example of a customer and a bank. So when a customer goes to a bank, and when a customer produces a check, so the bank will have, I mean bank should identify whether it is coming from the same person or no. So for that, the banker will check the signature. So this is all we conventionally know. So now we are going to study about what is meant by digital signature, and what is the basic differences between the digital signature and the conventional signature. So they have given the example here. So when Alice sends a message to Bob, Bob needs to check the authenticity of the sender. He needs to be sure that the message comes from Alice and not Eve. So when Alice sends a message to Bob, so Bob should ensure that the message is authenticated, and it is coming from the authorized person. That is, the message is being sent by Alice itself and not by Eve. So in case of this, Eve is a person who is trying to uh, I mean, who is a third person, and he is acting like Alice, but he is not the original Alice. So the Bob should ensure that yes, the message is authenticated and it is being sent by Alice itself. So for this, we use this digital signature, or we can say that electronic signature. So for that, Bob can ask Alice to sign the message electronically. So in other words, an electronic signature can prove the authenticity of Alice as the sender of the message. So we refer to this type of signature as the digital signature. So and we can also call this as the electronic signature. So we are going to study the basic comparison, or we are going to understand the differences between the regular signature, I mean conventional signature, and the digital signature now. So let me take up this quickly. So these are the major differences between the conventional signature and the digital signature. So basically conventional signature, it is included in the document. For example, you are requesting something for, you are for applying for a job, or you are applying for a leave. So you, after the message, you sign there and you will specify that I am the undersigned person so and so. So in the conventional signature, the signature is present in the document, or it is included in the document, and we can say that the signature is part of the document itself. But in case of digital signature, the digital signature is not included in the document, and it is sent as a separate entity or a separate document. So when we are using the digital signature, the sender will send two things. One is the original message and another is the digital signature. But whereas in case of conventional signature, when we send a message, we are sending the message as well as the signature together. And because of that, we can say that conventional message is included in the document and it is a part of the document, but whereas digital signature is not included in the document and it is sent as a separate document. And next, the difference is in conventional signature, when the recipient receives a document, she compares the signature on the document with the signature on the file. So for example, if you take the same example of a customer and a bank, so when a customer produces a check, so the banker will check the signature present on the this check, and also already the banker has already taken, I mean already has received your signature in a particular file when you are opening the account. So both the signature will be matched. So the signature that one that you have provided when you are opening the account and the signature that is present on the check, both will be verified. If both are same, then he can ensure that, the banker can ensure that yes, the check is valid and it is by the authorized person, or it is a authenticated one. But in case of digital signature, when the recipient receives the message and the signature, a copy of the signature is not stored anywhere. I mean, they will not store the signature. They will just separate the message and the signature. I mean, the receiver will receive two things. One is the message and one is the signature. And in case of a conventional signature, there is one to many relationship. So what is one to one many relationship? That is the example we can understand with the example. A person, for example, has a signature that is used to sign many checks, many documents. So we can use our signature to do many things. We can give it for a letter, or we can use it for writing a will, or we can use our signature for opening an account, or checking on the, I mean, we are signing on the check, and so on. So it is called as one to many. So it's the same signature is used in many documents or for many purposes. But whereas in digital signature, it is a one to one. That means every message. So when you are sending a message or a document, the signature will be unique. Like we say one time password. So the digital signature will be one time. We cannot use it for twice. So, but whereas in case of conventional message, the signature can be used in multiple purposes. But whereas digital signature, every document or every message will have its own signature and that cannot be replicated. So these are the 4 to 5 major differences between the um, conventional signature and the digital signature. And also we cannot have the duplicate signature. As we discussed just now, the digital signature cannot be duplicated. I mean, for one particular file, one signature will be there, and the same signature cannot be used for another document. But whereas in case of conventional message, we use the same signature, but for multiple purposes. So these are the basic difference between the conventional and the digital signature. So in digital signature, the signer uses his private key applied to a signing algorithm. So in case of digital signature, and the person who is signing it, or the person who is sending the information, he uses the private key, and that private key will be applied to the algorithm, signing algorithm. So they signing is nothing but we can call it as the encryption. So we are going to study that now, what is meant by signing. So to sign the document, so they use the encryption technique, or we can call it as the signing. And the verifier, on the other hand, uses the public key of the signer applied to the verifying algorithm. So when the message is sent from the sender, the receiver, or we can say a verifier, on the other hand, uses the public key of the signer. So there will be two things: one is the private key and one is the public key. So by using these two concepts, we can understand the process of digital signature. So basically, the digital signature can be achieved in two ways. One is by using the signing the document, and one more concept is the signing the digest. So let us understand in detail about what you mean by signing the document. I'm just opening the PPT now so that you can understand clearly. So this is the first method. So here we can see that there are two parties involved. One is the Alice and one is the Bob. So when Bob wants to send a message, so he will be using the he will be having two keys. But in case of message confidentiality, we have seen that in case of confidentiality, the receiver will be having two keys. One will be the private key and one will be the public key. So in case of message confidentiality, the receiver will generate the keys, and he will keep the private key with himself, and he will announce the public key. But it is reverse in case of the in case of the digital signature. So in this concept, the Alice will be having two keys, the public key and the private key. So since Alice is a sender, he will generate the public key and private key, and you can observe this, the color of this key and this key are different. So this is to indicate that the public key and private key are different. So in case of this, the plain text will be compressed or encrypted by using the signing algorithm, or by this we can call it as the locking the document or the information, and that information will be sent to the receiver. So in this, what will happen? Uh, So when the sender wants to send the information, he will use, he has already generated two keys. One is the public and one is the private. So the sender will use the private key of his, and he encrypts the information, or by using the encryption algorithm, the information will be encrypted, and that encrypted information will be sent to the receiver. At the receiving side, the Bob will use another key. So that is nothing but the public key that is being shared by the allies. So we can see that the two keys are different here. The keys are not same. The keys are not same. So the Bob will use the public key of the sender, that is nothing but the alias, and unlocks the information or decrypts. So this concept we call it as the verifying. So as we speak in terms of, as we talk about in terms of digital signature, one is the signing algorithm and another is the verifying algorithm. So the signing algorithm runs at the sender side and the verifying algorithm runs at the receiver side. So Bob will receive the information. He will use the public key of the sender, in case of this example alias, and then he unlocks the information, and that will be converted into plain text and that will be received by the Bob. So this is the first method, that is signing the message itself in the digital signature. So we can use the another method as well. So let us understand that second technique. So in case of this, signing the digest in a digital signature. So instead of encrypting the message directly, what we can use is we can use the digest. So what is the digest basically? Digest will be, as we have, if you have attended the previous class, we have studied about the message digest. So what is the message digest basically? We'll be having a document or the message, and that document or the message will be converted into something called as fingerprint. Okay, or like a image, it will be converted into image. So how it will be converted into image? It will be converted into image with the help of something called as hash function. So this is the original message at the sender site, and they apply the hash function will be run, and after the hash function we get a message digest or the fingerprint or the uh, image of that original document in the fingerprint form, and that digest will be sent to the receiver. Okay, so again we call this as the signing process, and this is the verifying process. And this I mean, in the earlier case we directly sent the message, but whereas in this case, instead of encrypting the original message, we are encrypting the message digest, or the message is being generated after applying the hash function. And at the receiving side, Bob will generate, again if you observe this, it is not using the same shared key. So again, alias is having two keys, one is the private key and the public key. So alias, your user says private key to lock it, I mean to encrypt the digested message, and he will send it to the Bob. So while receiving, Bob will I mean receive this document, and again the hash function will be generated and the message digest will be generated. That is the fingerprint of the message will be generated. So you can observe this. So in this case, Bob will use the public key. Okay, the Bob will use the public key generated by the sender, and the digest will be compared whether it is same or no. If it is same, then the document will be accepted or the message will be accepted. Otherwise, the document will be discarded. So this is the second technique through which we can achieve the digital signature. So the first part, the first technique is directly taking the message and encrypting it or signing it. And another concept is, instead of directly encrypting the message, we can create the message digest, and that message digested message or the fingerprint image can be sent to the verifying system or the receiver. So this is how we can achieve the digital signature. So let me go back to the notes part. So this is what we have discussed just now, signing the document. So this is the easiest one, but it is not that sufficient. I mean, it is not that efficient one, and we can say that it is a less efficient one. So for that, to overcome the drawback of this, we use the signing the digest. So this is what happens in case of this. So a digital signature can provide 3 out of 5 services. We have studied 5 different services. So out of that, it provides message integrity, message authentication, and the non-repudiation. So now let us understand the entity authentication. So what is basically entity authentication is all about? So this is very, very basic, and it uses the concept of username and passwords. So entity authentication is a technique designed to let one party prove the identity of the another party. So if you take up the same example uh, of the customer and a bank. So when we go to a bank, so the banker will ask some identity proof. Do you have any Aadhaar card, or do you have uh, a driving license, or any PAN card, and so on. So one party is trying to prove the identity of the other party, and they should have the proper identity card. So if you produce a proper identity card, you can communicate or you can transact with the bank. Otherwise, they will not allow you to and they will not allow you to make any transactions. So in case of this, an entity can be a person, or entity can be a process, or it can be a client. So if you take in a real life, entity can be person like a customer, or it can be a process as well. Or if you, when you want to access any web portals, or when you want to access SBI online banking portal, so that can be a process. So the entity means it can mean a person, or it can be a process, or it can be a client as well, or it can be a server as well. So the entity whose identity needs to be proved is called the claimant. The party that tries to prove the identity of the claimant is called the verifier. So we need to understand these two terms. What do you mean by claimant, and what is the meaning of verifier? So if you take the example of same the customer and a bank will be the bank will be the verifier, because bank is trying to prove the identity. Okay, so in case of this, a customer will be called as the claimant, because he will be having his identity card, and the party that tries to prove the identity. So if a customer is having a proper identity, then the banker can verify that yes, it belongs to so and so person. So the banker will act as a verifier, and the customer who is producing the documents, or who is producing the identity cards or identity proof, that will be called as, or that person is called as the claimant. So in entity authentication, the claimant must identify himself to the verifier. So if a verifier wants to know the details, so the claimant must have some valid proofs. So that is, my name is this, and my address and so on, or my locality and so, and my date of birth. So all these information should be there for the. So all this information should be there with the person, and he should produce whenever it is being asked by the verifier. So this can be done with one of the 3 kinds of witnesses. So we can have 3 types of witnesses. The first one is something known. So this is a secret known only by the claimant that can be checked by the verifier. So for example, we can have our own password. For example, if I am the customer and if I'm using online banking, I will be having my own username and password, and that password I will not share with anyone. Or I can have a PIN number, or if you take a general example, I will be having a PAN card number, or social security number, SSN number, or I will be having a secret key or a private key that will be only with me, and that cannot be used by someone else. So this is something known. So this is the the example of, the password or a PIN number can be understand in the concept of something known. And we can have one more witness, or we can call it as the something possessed. So this is something that can prove the claimant's identity. Examples are the passport or the driving license, an identification card, or the credit card. So these are, we'll be having something possessed, so that belongs to only us. So I will be having my own Aadhaar card or the driving license or identification card or PAN card. So all this comes under the category of something possessed. And we can have one more, that is the something inherent. So something inherent means the characteristics of the claimant. So a customer or a person will be having his own individual or unique characteristics. Like I can have my fingerprint, or I can have my voice, or my facial characteristics, and so on. Or these days we can have the retina scan, or the retinal patterns can be also checked, or my handwriting. So which is being inherent in my characteristics, or we can call them as the inherent characteristics of a claimant. So entity authentication can be achieved by using three kinds of witnesses. So first one is the something known, and second one is something possessed, and third one is the something inherent. And we have one more concept in the message authentication, that is the password. So the simplest and the oldest methods of entity authentication. So how we can verify that the message is being sent by same person, or we should give the authority to access some information or to access the file. So this is done by the passwords. Okay, is the password is used when a user needs to access a system or to use the system resources. So whenever I want to log into any portal or my university portal, or to know my information, okay, so I should have my valid username and password. So each user has a identification that is public and a password that is private. For example, if I take my Gmail account or Gmail ID, that will be public. So I can share my Gmail ID to everyone. Okay, so if I want to communicate with others, I should give my identification, that is my email ID is so and so, that I can give it to everyone. So that will be the my unique identification, and that will be the public one. But whereas my Gmail password will be a private one. Okay, so I cannot share that. So that will be the private one. So we can divide this authentication scheme into two separate group. So one is the fixed password, and another one is the one-time password. So in this fixed password, the passwords that we regularly use for any online services, or to log into any of the online email accounts, that we can call it as the fixed passwords. The same password is used over and over for every success. So if you want to log in for Gmail, or to log into any social websites like Facebook and so on, you have to use the same password every time. Whenever you want to access it, you have to use it. No doubt there is a possibility to change your own passwords, but that password only you have to use it whenever you want to log into the system. So this approach is subjected to several attacks like eavesdropping, stealing a password, or accessing a password file, or guessing, etc. So the problem with this fixed password is, so for example, if my name is so and so, or I will try, the eavesdropping is something, but a third person secretly tries to identify your password. So suppose your name is say Vishal, and the other person, the person who is trying to hack your system, he will try to access the information, or he will give the password as Vishal 12345, or Vishal with his date of birth. So by trying some techniques, he will try to hack your system, or he is trying to access your information. So this is the problem with the fixed password. So, and also they can steal your password, or accessing a password, or by guessing also we can check it out. Or for example, if you might have written your password on some file or some book, so that can be accessed. And for example, your may friend check your notebook, and they may try to steal a password, and they can use it, or they can do with the guessing work. And one more type of password is the one-time password. So these are the password that we use whenever we go for purchasing any item or material from the Flipkart, or you can say any from e-commerce website, or when you are doing online transactions. So that one-time password will be unique every time and for every transaction, and it will have its own validity. So it will come up with like 3 to 4 minutes. So if you are not using that one-time password within that 3 to 4 minutes, you cannot use it. For example, if you are using the PhonePe or any other transactional apps, so it will be having only 5 minutes of time. So if you are not using that one-time password within the 5 minutes, it will get expired. So that is the advantage of using the one-time password. So whenever we are dealing with the online transactions, so basically with the monetary transactions, we use this. I mean, the service provider, I mean the customer, I mean the bank who is providing, or the financial institution will give the one-time password. So one-time password makes eavesdropping and stealing very difficult. So the other person or whoever wants to hack the system, they cannot use it, because it will be unique one every time. So, and we cannot use the same repeated password for different transactions. So this is with respect to the message authentication. Uh, and so by using the digital signature technique, and uh, so these are the different services that are provided. So by using this passwords, I mean one-time passwords, we can achieve the entity authentication. So these are the different services that we have discussed in the network security. So I hope you have understood this. So if you have any doubts, please let me know. In the coming classes, we are going to study about the VPN, that is virtual private network, and a small part is remaining. So that we are going to discuss. Thank you.